Buen dia. Any Brazilians in the audience? Raise your hand. Good, two. This is a shame, actually. We have been trying for years to do this in Brazil, and we failed miserably every time. It feels very good to be here in Buenos Aires and meet a party. It's a conference that's very respected. I've been looking forward to participate for years now, so it's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mariano and the Hackers Buenos Aires chapters for the invitation. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. This is a presentation, actually. What I want with this presentation is to tell a story of how we can inspire and help newsrooms, not only here in Latin America, but around the world. So it's actually an informal invitation for you guys to work with us. I studied engineering, but I failed that, and I went to journalism, right? It's the right decision. If you fail engineering, you go to journalism, of course. But engineering never left me in a way. I met Aaron Pilhofer, one of the founders of Hackers, while I was working as a science news reporter, and then I fell in love with data journalism. I learned how to code, and I started working as a volunteer in School of Data and Escola de Dados and Escola de Dados in Brazil. And now here I am because I fell in love with this project. Google News Lab is, it's very well connected to what journalists do. If we think about Google's mission, which is it's this big, gigantic mission, but it's very connected to what journalists do. So if we want to organize the world's information to make it universally accessible, useful, that's kind of like what journalists do, like by telling the most important stories of our time and holding the powerful to account. So the Google News Lab exists in this reality. And when we think about what happened to the media and the journalism landscape in the last 20 years, it's pretty devastating, right? What's happening, it's really worrying. It brought a lot of opportunities, but also brought a lot of challenges. And this is what fascinates me. How can we take this shift to digital amongst all of the things that are important that are happening, and then take the opportunities and make it better for journalism everywhere? We're talking about advancements in technology like augmented reality, virtual reality, mobile computers. We can take cameras anywhere, drones. Those are very, very good opportunities, but the challenges are also there. So how can a company like Google is big, Google does a lot of things, but how can a company like Google that is in the intersection of engineering, design, technology, information, support what you guys do, which is great, which is quality journalism, original reporting, hold the powerful to account, spread knowledge. So how can we do that? Well, we're geeks at the News Lab, so we thought of like a two-dimensional matrix. No, I'm joking. I'm just going to tell you what we do. So we selected 4 areas where we can focus our attention. It gives us clarity, it gives us this north, and these are areas that actually you guys from the journalism industry told us where Google could make a difference. I'm talking about trust and verification, data journalism, immersive storytelling, and inclusive storytelling. And I'm gonna go a little bit in details at each one of them and hopefully inspire you with projects and initiatives that we can do together, things that we are doing elsewhere as well. And we do all of this in collaboration with you using these 4 types of activities. So we do a lot of training. We have trainers all around the world. We have here with us today Juan Manuel that also works at the News Lab supporting us with training. We have research. We produce original research to inform people in the industry what are the most important things that happen in journalism, or how you guys can tell us how the products that we have can better help you. Anyone that uses Google Drive for journalism here? Google Spreadsheets? So how can we improve those kinds of tools that it's better for you guys? That's one of the things that we do. We also create networks. There is a convening part of the News Lab so that we can gather together journalists to talk about the most important aspects of our jobs. And then we launch programs as well. But enough of that. let's talk about the focus areas. First, trust and verification. The way we articulate this problem of trust and verification and where Google can make a difference is that although we have a lot of information now, we have information in an intensity that has never happened before in history, it's very hard to differentiate signal from noise. It's very hard for us to tell what is truth. In a wealth of information, how can we use skills and digital tools and platforms to differentiate those things? So that's how we articulate the problem at the News Lab, and we want to help you guys to take advantage of this wealth of information and produce quality content for the audiences. But how exactly we're going to do this? I have a few examples of other initiatives that we're doing around the world, and hopefully some of them can inspire us to think about things that we can do together here in Argentina and other countries in Latin America as well. My first example is First Draft. First Draft is a coalition that started in 2015, and think of it as like newsrooms banding together to fight misinformation online. So whenever a piece of fake news comes up in social networks, the idea is that those newsrooms, they will come together, fact check it, and then print their own explanation of what happened, hopefully creating more awareness around what's truth. First Draft is started with actually 8 organizations in 2015, and today it has more than 80 organizations around the world, including other platforms like Facebook and Twitter. And the News Lab is a proud founding member of First Draft Coalition. So this is an example of networks that we help and that was support forming. Another example on the trust verification topic is Electionland. Electionland is a project that we launched last year. It was a huge collaboration between newsrooms and institutions in the United States to focus in one single question, which was, were voters having problems to access the polling stations in the US? Was there any illegal activity happening? And the answer is no. We had Google Trends data feeding into a central network that was analyzing cases of people having problems to access the polling stations. This information was then spread out by NPR, one of the partners of this project. We had another partner called CUNY, the City University of New York, and Univision as well. We had thousands of journalists working on this. Another example, the Trust Project. The Trust Project is an example of how we can gather experts around a topic that's very important. The Trust Project is an initiative that gives editorial governance. What is that? It's how can you make journalism content more authoritative on the web? How can you send signals to whoever is reading you to say, this is quality content? So the Trust Project, if you Google it, you can find more information about it. It's about that. First Draft, the first initiative that I mentioned, made a partnership with the News Lab in France in the last presidential elections a few months ago. The idea was, how can we fight fake news during the presidential campaigns? Because it was definitely happening there in France right after the American elections. The idea was, let's get a lot of newsrooms. So we had over 30 newsrooms in France, including the biggest ones. We got 60 journalists for a weekend, and we trained them with the help of the best in the industry, trained them to create their own fact-checking units. And what happened afterwards, when they went back to their newsrooms, each organization had the expertise to do fact-checking in the way that the PolitiFact does fact-checking from 2007 on. And then we created a website, and if you look there on the upper right, every time fake news appeared during the French presidential campaign, these newsrooms came together, they checked those pieces of information, and they signed the verification together. So, for example, Macron was allegedly seen using like an electronic device during the debates. That information was false, but it was not only one newsroom saying that it was false. It was multiple newsrooms across the spectrum of political, liberal or conservative publications, they were all signing together the same verdict that information is false. And it was really powerful because he helped fight disinformation online during the presidential campaigns in France. And then we're trying and we're successfully exporting this project to other markets. We have the German elections coming up this weekend. We also had the British elections right after Brexit, and we're talking to other partners around the world to bring this model to other markets as well. In Brazil, to give a local example, we just started a project called Impacto.jor, which is the first attempt on a big scale to measure the social impact of journalism. But why is that? Today, the pressure of the market has made newsrooms to become very clickbait. Right? Everybody knows this. You're producing stories that needs to attract audiences, needs to attract clicks, because you need to survive. That's the reality of the market now. But how can we bring back the value of journalism and compensate stories that bring impact? That's what Impacto.jor does. It's a massive data collection around the impact of each newsroom, of each reporter, and then use that data to convince people to sign up for the newspaper. And not only that, to convince brands to invest in journalism because of the impact that they make in the world, enriching the business model of journalism. There is more information about this on our Medios channel if you're interested. Let's move on to data journalism. The way we articulate the problem is that there is more data now available than there has ever been. There was a wave of Freedom of Information Acts around the world. There's more data sets available to you guys than has ever been. But it's really expensive, right? You need a new set of skills that it's not natural to journalists in the traditional sense. It's becoming more natural, but we know it's expensive. We know it's hard, and we need collaboration to do that. And how can a company like Google that is very data-driven, that has the biggest publicly available data set of information, Google Trends, which brings search data, real-time search data to anyone, anywhere. How can we do that and support data journalism moving forward? Well, we have a few examples. We do that by providing Google Trends, but also helping newsrooms to understand the search data. Because if you think about it, the search box in Google, it's very intimate, right? It's very authentic. We type things on that search box that we don't even tell our therapists, right? It's very, very intimate. And if you take a look at this data and then you analyze it, you can get great insights, content that's really, really relevant to journalism. And we do that surfacing this kind of content in important moments. For example, in political debates, what are people searching during the debates? What are the questions that they're asking? Or what are the issues that they're searching for? And then we help candidates and parties to be informed around those moments. We also had a big presence in the German elections that's happening right now and in French elections. So whenever there is a relevant moment that is important for society, usually there's something that you can associate with what people are searching to inform your content. And that's what we do with Google Trends. Also, for example, the Olympic Games. There's World Cup next year. Hopefully Brazil is not going to be beaten down again by Germany. But we also do a lot of stuff around big sports events as well. And we create pieces to inspire the industry. So this one, for example, is how the world searched for terror attacks. This we produced right after the Brussels attacks. And we really could see that some stories, they were spread out more often than others, right after a terror attack. And then it helps us see why that happens in a beautiful visualization. Also, for example, the Zika. How can we correlate the searches around Zika and the outbreak of cases? Google data is much more useful when associated with other data sets. We also provide great tools for journalists. So if you're a data journalist, you don't know how to code, you don't know any design, or you're starting and you need to produce good content, we also want to use our capacities to provide you with great tools that are going to be relevant to you. One example is the GIF data maker. Data GIF Maker, which is a maker of GIFs of trends data that's super easy to do, and then you can post on social media. It generates a GIF for you. Tilegrams is another one to make tiles and maps, super easy. And another one that we are supporting that's recent, it's Flourish. If you don't know Flourish, do it. It's a wonderful tool. If you want to create stunning visuals without knowing any color design, really complex, you can transform any spreadsheet in a beautiful visualization and very complex visualization using Flourish. And to journalists, we're facilitating the access to journalists supporting the Kiln Studio that's based in the UK to do that. We also, of course, have a GitHub account. So if you go to googletrends.github.com, you will see our data store. There are dozens and dozens of data sets there that are curated especially around special moments with trends data for you to use. And we also produce quality content on our Twitter account at Google Trends. Go check it out. Immersive storytelling. I mentioned in one of the first slides that we have like a wealth of technology coming up to help journalism produce better content. But that wealth of technology is like expensive, it's difficult to deal with, but we can tell new kinds of stories with it. Virtual reality, for example, or augmented reality. But there are also challenges associated with it, for example, editorial challenges, or ethical challenges, or technical challenges. For example, would it be legal to fly a drone over a farm that's like doing some illegal stuff? How far above would be legal to fly this drone? Or would it be ethical to recreate a war crime scene for a virtual reality experience? Like, what about respecting the people who died in that crime? You know, those are questions that are difficult to answer. But a company like Google that is investing in this kind of technology can support journalists to understand the medium and how to tell better stories with it. So in immersive storytelling, we're supporting the creation of a network called Journalism 360 in partnership with the Online News Association and the Knight Foundation. And this is a network to really understand. It's like a collective session for people who want to do immersive storytelling. So if you want to understand, like, if I'm starting a VR operation in my newsroom, what are the specs? What kind of equipment do I buy? What kind of story work? What do I have to do to get started? Can I get trained? Can I get like support funds to start, like to do a cool project? This is what Journalism 360 does. If you're a immersive journalism geek, just check it out, because there are a lot of people out there who are experimenting on this and can help you as well. If you check the Medium account of the Journalism 360 network, you will see that there's a lot of content already saying VR is like a new opportunity, how to choose a 360 camera. It's great. Check it out. We also do projects with newsrooms around the world, projects that somehow will challenge the boundaries of immersive storytelling. One of the projects that we did is called 6x9 with The Guardian, and it answers the question, what would it feel like to experience solitary confinement? What would it feel like if you were like in a closed space? And what are the consequences to the effects to your mind? So this project that The Guardian did in partnership with the News Lab, you can experiment with a virtual reality glass, but you can also experiment on your phone or on desktop. It also has experts talking. So there's a really quality audio aspect to it to help you understand the effects on your mind, or what are the sounds that are captured when you are in solitary confinement, and what does it feel like? Another project was with the Berliner Morgenpost, which is a German newspaper. With the big flux of refugees coming to Berlin, we wanted to understand what it was like their week in a day-to-day basis. So we put a lot of 360 cameras following their routine, and then we show what it was like to be a refugee in Berlin around that time. We also published the first study, it was an ethnography, to understand what users think about VR, right? It's not a given that VR content will be good for journalism. What about the user? Do they like it? What are the bad things about it? What are the good things about it? So this is the first of its kind study that tries to understand if VR, how people study VR, consume VR, and what it means for journalism. We also organized drone journalism camps in the US to teach people in the US how to fly drones on a journalism context. So all of the rules that they have in the United States, each country has different set of rules that are applied when you're flying a drone. We organized camps in 2017 in partnership with the University of Nebraska and Poynter and others. We're also bringing, resurfacing a tool called StorySpheres.com. If you think that you need a lot of money to start on VR, think again. You can take 360 photos with your phone, although it's not ideal, or with an inexpensive 360 camera, and you can use StorySpheres.com, to upload your pictures, to add audio, to add annotations, and also to link to other pictures. So you can actually tell stories with 360 pictures using this tool. It's super easy, and you can embed the content on your website. And finally, for our last focus area, which is a new area for us, it is inclusive storytelling. The way we articulate the problem and how Google can help is something like this. Although a lot of people are posting things online now, I see a lot of people are probably sharing things now on Twitter or Facebook or social network, posting pictures and making comments. So now a lot of voices are out there. You have the platform to speak. But that doesn't necessarily mean that underrepresented voices or underserved communities are part of the media conversation. Having the ability to make your voice out doesn't mean that your voice is being heard, right? And how can a technology company like Google that cares deeply about inclusiveness, how can it help journalists and newsrooms around the world navigate through the fact that if you don't have diversity in the newsroom, you're probably missing a lot of important stories that need to be part of the media conversation. And the way we're doing this, we are supporting the first independent journalism festival in Brazil. It's going to happen in November. It's a bunch of organizations in Brazil that are just starting or small. They're independent in a way that they're not part of the traditional media. So we're supporting that. We're also supporting community journalism also in the country. Fala Roça, the one on the right, is a newspaper that happens inside a favela, and they're teaming together with NGOs, which is a journalism school for vulnerable communities in Brazil as well, and they're doing projects together around VR, around data journalism, with the support of the News Lab. So we're trying to get that as well in partnership. So the content that they produce, we're going to try to make that content available to big publishers in Brazil, to put it out there so that people can see what they're doing. We also support multiple organizations and initiatives around the world. One example is the Future News with Le Monde Academy, which is an event that they gather young talents, they train them, they do 4 boot camps, and then the best projects are awarded in a award that the News Lab supports. With the ProPublica in the United States, we are supporting a project and developing a project called Documenting Hate. Documenting Hate is about getting bias and hate crimes that are reported in the media through Google Alerts technology and natural language processing using Google Cloud to create a huge data set of hate crimes in the US, something that doesn't exist in a consolidated way, in this way, and we're using machine learning and artificial intelligence to get those cases, build a database, and make it available for free for social scientists, for activists, and for journalists. Dozens of organizations are partners in this project, and we're very proud to be part of that. We're also inspired by the work that Google.org is doing around gender bias in video. One Googler created an algorithm that evaluates any given video and identify gender and race in the video, and then creates an index to say what's the inclusion coefficient of your video. We are inspired by that because we think there's something here that can help inform newsrooms around the world of how their publications, how their videos are doing in terms of gender equality and race equality. So there will be more news about that in the future. And lastly, guys, I mentioned that we have 4 topic areas and different kinds of activities. And the 2 activities that are really important mentioning here, because I mentioned the creation of networks and also programs, but training and research is a big part of what we do. We provide training for free for journalists all around the world. Just this year, we have trained almost 26,000 journalists in person. And this training is not any kind of training. This is really helping journalists understand how they can use Google tools to apply to journalism. How can you do like data analysis using Google Sheets, or how can you tell stories with Google Maps, or how can you use fusion tables to do network analysis and things like that. So these are how do you apply Google tools for journalism, and we were able to train almost 26,000 people this year. For Latin Americans specifically, we partner up with the Knight Center for Journalism in the Americas to have 5 massive and open online courses around areas that are useful, hopefully useful to you guys. The first one that we had was fact-checking for journalists, 100% in Portuguese. We also had video journalism in Portuguese, and we are having now, so go check it out in journalismcourses.org. This is open right now, virtual reality and 360 video for journalists, and that's in Spanish by Robert Hernandez. And we also have 2 other courses in the being baked for 2017. One is going to be fact-checking for journalists, but this time around in Spanish, and we'll have another one about coding in Portuguese later on. But these 2 courses are happening this year, so check it out in journalismcourses.org. We're very proud to be partners of the Knight Center for Journalism in the Americas in this project. We also have courses in our website. So if you go to g.co/newslab, there are courses there, like introductory courses, to learn how to use Google tools applied for journalism. And those courses they're all free. You don't even have to create an account. You just open the website, go to training. There is Spanish or Portuguese or English. They're in 12 languages. You can go there. There's video, there's text, and it's super easy to do. Very quick and small lessons about the Google tools. I mentioned we also do research. So if you're interested in helping us to get more information around what kind of functionalities you want to see in our products apply to journalism. So let's say you want like an automated way to transcribe interviews and then upload to Google Drive and then integrate it with Google Docs or something like that. Talk to us. We are collecting evidence and demands from the journalism industry to improve our products. In the past, we did this in a very informal way, but now we're doing it more formally now, creating focus groups and creating original research around that. We're also supporting great research in Brazil now. We're supporting a Brage and a data journalism agency called Gênero e Número to do the first survey to map gender representation in journalism in Brazil. Brazil has no historic data about gender representation in Brazilian newsrooms, and we are creating the ground zero for that. So hopefully this will be a year survey that will tell a story of how well we're doing in gender representation in journalism. We also support Media Trainers Network around the world, in the United States and in Germany. We have the Google News Lab University Network with more than 100 universities right now. This is an opportunity to enrich the journalism curriculum of journalism courses with what Google can offer, when that makes sense. We also have Google News Lab fellowships. We've done that in 12 countries, which is an opportunity for young talents to create great projects in interesting newsrooms around the world. We're studying how well we can bring this to Latin America. More on that soon. We're also supporting the ecosystem for innovation with projects like Matter.vc, which is a media accelerator. So we're also looking for opportunities to support media innovation in the region. That's everything that I had to share with you today. Thanks for having me, and have a great conference.